Hey folks, welcome back to the 7-day conversion course. I'm your host, Riley Bunce with Studio 909. And on day 5, we're going to be doing call to action placement and strategy. So let's get straight into it. The harsh reality of call to actions is that 70% of websites have weak and generic call to action. Changing one word can increase conversions by up to 18%. Button color changes can improve results by 21%. Strategic placement can double click-through rates. Yeah, you heard that right. So why most call to actions fail? First of all, generic language. Learn more and submit. Second, no clear value proposition. You're not communicating what's in it for them. Third, poor placement, placing your buttons in the wrong area. Last but not least, ignoring mobile thumb zones. Your call to action is the bridge between interest and action, so make it count. Let's get into the psychology behind high converting call to actions real quick. Loss aversion beats gain seeking 2-1. Something weak would be aligned along the lines of grow your business, whereas something strong would be stop losing customers to competitors. Specific beats generic every time. Something weak would get started versus something strong would be get your first 100 customers. Action words trigger dopamine release. Words like get, access, unlock, and start create anticipation and excitement. First person language creates ownership. Using words like my instead of your will make them feel more enticed to click. Here's the call to action stack formula. Basically, what we're looking at is having an action word, a specific outcome, a time frame, and a risk reversal. An example breakdown of this would be get your first 100 customers in 30 days risk-free. So the action word is get. It implies that the visitor is receiving value. The specific outcome would be first 100 customers, not vague like more sales. You're giving a specific time frame, 30 days. This creates urgency. And the risk reversal is risk-free, removing their biggest barrier. It addresses their desire, urgency, and fear simultaneously. Obviously, this is a lot, so you don't need to include it all within your call to action, but having a combination of these is best. Action words that convert, high impact action words for value and benefits would be get, access, receive, and claim. For transformation, it would be start, begin, launch, create, and build. For learning, discover, learn, master, reveal. For exclusivity, join, enter, become, qualify. The psychology behind this is that action words make the brain visualize taking the step and receiving the reward. So some specific outcomes that drive clicks. Generic outcomes would be things like improve your business, get better results, learn more, or sign up. Versus specific outcomes, get your first 100 customers, cut support costs by 40%, add 10K in monthly revenue, start your 14-day trial. The rule of thumb here is that if you can't measure the outcome, it's too vague for a call to action. Optimal timeframes vary by industry. If you're a software company, you're looking at 7 to 30 days. For consulting, it's 24 hours to 7 days, whereas e-commerce is as fast as they can get it. Get instant access or ships in 2 days. The psychology behind this is that timeframes make promises feel more realistic and urgent. So moving on to risk reversal techniques. Some commonly used risk reversals are money back guarantees, no commitment, free trials, and satisfaction guarantees. The psychology behind this is removing risk removes their biggest conversion barrier. So the biggest reason why they're feeling hesitant to go through with your offer, you're laying it out for them right when they're at the point of decision making. All right, so here's a bunch of high converting call to action phrases for free trials, lead magnets, consultations, purchases, and exclusivity and urgency. These 17 phrases have been proven to be some of the highest converting. So use them and optimize them for your specific offer. So getting into color psychology behind call to actions, different colors are going to appeal to different visitors' emotions. Be sure to consider this when you're designing your website. Orange creates urgency and encourages action. Best for e-commerce and impulse purchases. It can lift your conversions up to 32%. Green suggests safety, but also suggests go. It is seen a lot in financial services and healthcare websites. Red creates urgency and grabs attention. It's best for limited offers and sales. Blue builds trust and suggests reliability. This is best for B2B or professional services. The rule of thumb here is to test against your brand colors. Contrast is key. You want to make sure that it's fitting within your brand colors, but also stands out on your page and fits within the guidelines of your brand and industry. So, strategic call to action placement, humans typically read in an F pattern. So, users are going to be scanning your page in an F shape, as you can see on the screen there. The first line on the top is the top horizontal line. This is your header area. Second would be the subheading area. And then the third is going to be the vertical line across the left side. The optimal call to action placement would be to make sure that it's above the fold so the user doesn't have to scroll. It should be after your headline where your value proposition is once you've already established interest. And you're going to want to make it at the end of the content section, which is basically where your eyes will naturally go to when it's ready to make a decision. And we're going to go over this in a little bit more detail, but you want to make sure that it's in an easy to reach area on mobile devices. So the 3 call to action rule is maximum 3 call to actions per page to avoid decision paralysis. So you don't want to have too many buttons that offer too many different actions for the user to take. You want to have one key primary call to action and a couple secondary max. So the call to action sandwich technique is similar to the credibility cascade. You're structuring a section by placing persuasive call to action between 2 other components. So layer 1, value proposition. An example of this would be cut your customer support costs by 40% in 30 days. Layer 2 would be social proof. Join over 10,000 companies already saving money. Layer 3 would be your primary call to action. Get my free cost analysis. Layer 4 would be risk reversal, so no obligation, get results, or full refund. And layer 5, secondary call to action, have questions, schedule a 5-minute call. You see how we're using that call to action formula stack to ensure that all the key areas are covered, but we're not putting everything within the button. We're spreading it out throughout the information. The reason why this was each layer removes a different objection leading to the call to action. So mobile call to action optimization, as you can see on the right, when you're holding your phone with your thumb, the easiest to reach areas are the bottom section. The trickier sections are as you get away from the bottom and closer to the top. It's harder to reach your thumb up there. But you want to have the easier to reach zones, which is the bottom third of the screen. That's where you want to be placing your call to action. The stretch zone is the middle of the screen, and this is where your secondary call to action could be. And the hard to reach actions is the top corners and opposite sides. And you want to avoid placing important call to actions here. Some best practices for mobile call to action optimization, it would be using minimum 44 pixel button height, high contrast colors, plenty of white space around buttons, and 1 primary call to action per screen. When it comes down to A/B testing your call to actions, here's some things to keep in mind. You're going to want to test copy elements, so action words. Then you can test how specific you want to get, generic versus specific outcomes, or different specific outcomes, different time frames like 7 days or 1 month, risk reversal language, and also design elements like button color, size, shape, and the placement on the page, and then context elements with or without social proof, with or without the risk reversal, and single versus multiple action. One key thing to keep in mind when testing is you only really want to be testing one element at a time. You're going to have your control and then your variation. Having 1,000 visitors per variation is going to be a good minimum number to test to ensure that you're getting accurate results. Now we're going to break down some common call to action mistakes that are going to kill your conversions. The first one would be weak action words. Words like submit, click here, or continue. You're not communicating the value of what they're going to get. Be as specific as possible to ensure that you're communicating that value. Second mistake would be multiple competing call to actions. If you have 5 different buttons that are all fighting for attention, it's hard for the user to decide what to do. If you have one primary call to action, it's going to make it a lot easier for the user to be guided towards something specific, and that's going to make it easier for them to convert. Third common mistake is not having risk reversals, asking for commitment without removing their fear. This creates high abandonment. Number 4 would be poor mobile placement. When you're putting your call to action in hard to reach area, this is going to cause a lot of issues for your visitors in terms of getting them to convert. Remember that up to 60% of your traffic is on mobile. So you want to be sure that you've optimized it for those folks as well as the desktop visitors. And mistake number 5 is using generic language. So learn more tells me nothing about what I'll learn versus low click rates. So industry specific call to action strategies. There's different optimal language that you should be using for different industries. So software as a sales, a trial focused one might be start my 14-day trial, whereas e-commerce, a purchase might be add to cart and save. B2B services, consultation, get my free analysis. And for coaching and transformation, start my transformation. Depending on your industry, be sure to use the right language to entice your audience with the right offer. So some advanced call to action psychology tactics would be using the curiosity gap. So get the secret strategy 97% of marketers miss. The social mirror would be something like join 50,000 other entrepreneurs who have transformed their business. Time constraint would be something like get early bird access, only 48 hours left. Authority assumption, start your expert level training. Outcome ownership, build my 10K a month business. And the psychology behind this is that we're tapping a little bit deeper into psychological triggers beyond basic action words. So now that we've explained all of that, we're going to perform an audit on our website. First step, we're going to list every call to action on our site and rate each from 1 to 10 based on clarity, value, urgency, and risk. Step 2 is looking at placement analysis. Check each call to action for above the fold visibility, mobile thumb zone placement. So make sure that you get on your phone for that. Logical flow position, competing call to actions nearby. And step 3 would be a performance review, click-through rates by call to action, conversion rates by call to action, mobile versus desktop performance, and traffic source performance differences. So based on these results, your call to action optimization roadmap is going to look like the following. Step 1, perform your audit, complete call to action inventory, identify your 3 to 5 weakest call to actions, set up tracking for current performance. And step 2, copy optimization, rewrite your call to actions using the stack formula, add risk reversal language, implement first person copy. And then step 3 would be design and placement, test button colors and sizes, optimize mobile placements, remove competing call to actions. And then step 4 is advanced testing. A/B test your top variations, implement the call to action sandwich technique, and measure and iterate. Some common questions regarding call to actions would be how many call to actions should I have per page? Maximum 3, 1 primary, and max of 2 secondary. The more buttons that you have, the harder it is for your visitor to decide what to do. Should I use the same call to action throughout my site? No, match the call to action to page context and visitor intent. What if my call to action doesn't fit the stack? Use what fits. The formula is a guide, not a rigid rule. All right, so how long should I run A/B tests? Until statistical significance or minimum 1,000 visitors per variation. You should call to action copy match my brand voice. Yes, but prioritize clarity and conversion over brand consistency. Before you leave, screenshot your current call to actions, rate your top 5, most important, rewrite your call to action using the stack formula, test it live this week. And then your challenge is to optimize 3 to 5 call to actions using today's framework and measure the results in 30 days. Remember, your call to action is the moment of truth when interest becomes action. Make every word count. Thanks so much for tuning in to day 5. We are almost at the end. We have one more day of the framework conversion course. We're going to be focusing on mobile optimization and then looking into advanced user conversion flow techniques. Be sure to check those out. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.